Welcome back to the long overdue episode of Switch Movies. It has been like 2 months
2 months
now.
or so.
Yeah, since the last one. I
Yeah.
want it on the record. It is not my fault and it is never
Nope.
my fault.
Never, ever, never, ever your fault. It's always mine. It's always mine.
Yep, that checks. That sounds about right. Although I'm not that mad because this month, and as we're recording this, is actually 1 year that we have been doing this
It's so
crazy
crazy.
podcast.
It's so insane. It's already been a year. It's so
Oh,
nuts.
I know, and we've only technically done 10 episodes.
Hey, we've only missed what 2 months. It's not bad.
Yeah, because we didn't do Christmas because you got sick.
Yeah. Yeah, I got real sick at Christmas.
Or so he claims.
That was the only time I had a valid excuse. This last 2 months, not an excuse at all.
Well, we back to chat and do things, but in the meantime, what has been going on with you for the past 2 months? Have you seen the outside world? Do you see daylight at all?
I try, luckily I have vitamin D pills that I take.
Oh, me
But no, like I try and get out occasionally, not really go anywhere, but just try and get some sunlight. Just because I do the morning show and then, either I stream or, like do editing or something like that. So I try and get some kind of sunlight because I can't be just staying inside all day.
well, technically, we can, and some of us have to.
Yeah.
Because what's going on? What's the state in California in regards to lockdown and isolation and all that right now?
I don't think we're not in lockdown or isolation, but we have to wear masks everywhere we go. Restaurants are patio only, and I think everything else is like, I don't want to say normal, but functioning. Like no businesses are like being. Oh no, like salons and stuff like that. Like I had a haircut scheduled for this last Wednesday because I saw the writing on the wall. I was like, I need one more haircut before we go back into this because people don't know how to act right. Like
Yeah.
like it's a happy medium of just wearing a mask and having everything open, but they don't even want to do that. So I was like, let me schedule one more haircut, and then I should be good for like another 2 months or so. And then literally I had it scheduled for Wednesday, and then on Monday they closed everything down. And my barber texted me, and she's like, "Sorry." I was like, "It's not your fault." And so I feel real bad, but she made a lot of money within like the last month or so of it being open. Like she was booked every single slot. So
I can imagine.
yeah, so hopefully she'll do like a house call or something like that, and we'll clean up the apartment and make it safe for her and for each other. So we'll see.
Or maybe you can make a YouTube video of my
No,
roommate cuts my hair.
no, never. That like I am perfectly fine. Quote unquote roughing it, with Wi-Fi and Netflix and my job being able to perfectly function from this space right here. But I refuse to cut my own hair or have any non-professional cut my hair.
Oh yeah, it's just not worth the views.
It's not. It's really not.
Even though hair does grow back.
It does, but no, just no.
No. Oh, well, maybe we'll come up with something else.
Maybe.
For now, the hat will just have to stay on.
The hat will have to stay.
You're almost like every time you're streaming or you're doing something, you're wearing a hat. So I'm just like at some points wondering if it's just becoming fused to your head.
Well, like I purposely got this hat for this purpose because like it's nice and stretchy. It's a good old dad hat, and it's just like you can slip it on and just not worry about anything.
Well, I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, I love it.
I have a couple of hats, but I chose to wear a wig instead.
Yeah, if I could get one of those like great Chris Evans, John Hamm like hair pieces that they have from all their movies, that'd be amazing. But unfortunately, I do not, so I am forced to just go with a hat.
Well, I mean, we gotta do what we gotta do.
It's very true.
Yeah, I myself, it's been a crazy month.
Yeah, I've heard. So you've told me.
Yeah, I'm still like I talk to people and they just say something like, oh, how's isolation life? And I'm just going, it's like every other day of my life. It's
Yeah.
nothing special. It's nothing to write home about, even though I am at home. And then next thing you know, oh, I'm in the hospital, and suddenly I'm like, oh, I actually have something to talk about. Suddenly it's like, oh, I feel like I actually did something. It's like I went on a vacation, even though it was just to the emergency room.
Oh,
But
perfect. Yeah.
but it was a great vacation in the sense that a lot of drugs were involved, and
Lovely.
that was fantastic.
Yeah, it
Um,
sounds good.
and I get to go and do it again on Wednesday. So
Nice. That'll be
yeah,
fun.
yeah. If I'm worrying about, oh, I haven't slept lately, that's so fine. I'm going to be medicated.
Yeah.
I'm going to be
It's gonna knock you
unconscious.
right out.
Exactly, and I love that.
The best. It really is.
I'm totally understanding people's love of drugs now.
Yeah.
Um, Although I know that I used to always hear people say that people would get addicted to morphine
Hmm.
because it would give you like a sense of euphoria or something. And yeah, when they gave me morphine, it lasted for about 5 minutes and then it didn't do jack shit.
Yeah. I
And
wasn't.
it didn't make me go, ah.
Yeah, I never got. That's the thing is that I was on like Oxycontin for my surgery or Vicodin, one of those, and just like, and that shit makes you constipated, and just like I just no, like opioids like constipate you, and I was just like so uncomfortable. I was just like I could never get addicted to this. But man, after you leave the hospital, you really feel how much they do because you're like, oh, like surgery's over, let's go home, and then 2 days later you're like, oh, that's what my body actually feels like. Okay, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I love the phrasing of that sentence. That shit makes you constipated. That was
Yeah.
a good choice of.
It's the worst. The worst.
Yeah, I was on 6 different painkillers, 3 different types of anti-nausea medication. The best drug they gave me, of course, was fentanyl. Oh,
Nice.
that was the best. I would like some more of that. And one painkiller was administered in a way, not really a fan, but when you're in that much pain, you really don't care how they give you the drugs, you just want the drug.
Yes, you just want the drugs.
So that was my fun experience as of late. And now here I am with Ben once again to see if we can, I don't know, agree on movies. I think we're kind of like, we're about 50%
Oh, you're
in
being way
terms.
too generous. We are like 25% in agreement.
Oh, it hasn't been that bad. I feel like the last few episodes we've been getting better.
Yeah.
I
You haven't given
mean,
me utter trash like Bloodfest or whatever the hell that was that you started off with. The podcast almost ended before it started, people. Lest we forget.
see, I thought my worst choice for you, by your terms, not mine, thought my worst one was the Ninth Gate. I thought you hated that one the most.
Oh, that Bloodfest. You're right. Ninth Gate was worse because of the director, because of the budget, because of the cast. Bloodfest I can forgive because it's a lower budget, like what a straight to video movie. Ninth Gate is, oh God, man, it was so confusing of how bad that movie was.
And yet I absolutely loved it. Don't worry, I was actually just finished. For those listening, I just finished recording the next episode of my game show series, Are You a Movie Oracle? And we were talking about Nicolas Cage, and then Mandy came up, and I was very pleased when John said how much he hated that movie. And I was like,
Ah, see, I just interviewed my friend Dorina who loves horror and she is obsessed
I
with
know.
Mandy and she literally has a Cheddar Goblin doll.
Okay, that's actually cool. I'll give that, but
Yes.
that only. Well, today the theme is high school. Do you have good memories of high school?
Back and forth. There was some real low lows, but some more good than bad, I'd say. What about you?
Oh, high school is fucking shit.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely hated Well, I don't know. Adulthood's been pretty shit too, but
I was gonna say.
I'm like, no, there haven't been many good years in my life or decades. But yeah, high school was particularly shit. I had lots of issues there. And then, of course, I was severely bullied, and that was fun. So, yeah, I don't recommend that. But then again, I'm like, would I recommend homeschooling? And I'm not entirely sure because I think that kind of screws you up a little bit too.
Yeah, I honestly don't know anybody, or maybe it just hasn't been brought up, that have been homeschooled. I'm sure I do, but I just, that particular subject hasn't been brought up. But yeah, there's some tough moments for sure in high school. Junior year, which is what, 11th grade.
Yeah.
So for our international listeners, uh, was probably the worst. But like I'd still say I enjoyed high school, but yeah, there were some tough moments for sure.
Were you one of those teenagers who had like the horrible acne and the high pitched
I
voice or
had
anything?
Oh yeah, I had pretty bad acne. Nothing like
Wow.
I've seen like cuz I watch like those pimple popping videos, so I've seen
Yeah.
people with like very very bad acne. Nothing as bad as that, but I definitely had my fair like I got on not Accutane but like the OxyClean, not OxyClean, that's like detergent. What was it called? Oh man, I need to
California.
look this up. It's gonna bug me because I went on that stuff and boy, like it works, but that stuff just destroys your skin for a little bit.
A public
Acne.
service announcement from Ben Goddard.
Yeah, just what was it called? Not
See,
ACN. Oh, it was like there was. Remember, like like Adam Levine was doing commercials for it. Katy Perry was doing commercials for it.
oh, wasn't that Proactive Solution?
Proactive. That's right. Proactive. Yes, I was on Proactive. I had like the 3 steps every night, and then on top of
Wow.
that, like my skin was already dried out because of chlorine. So then you put on Proactive, and it was just like I was just coating on oil-free lotion every single day, just because like my entire like chin right here was just like cracked and dry. It was crazy.
Were you a swimmer?
I was.
Ah, see, I'm learning so much right now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you had an acne problem, though. I was very fortunate. I never had any acne problems, and I still don't have any acne problems. No, I just traded them for dry skin as an adult. Yay.
I mean, I feel like everyone has dry skin as an adult. Like, I feel like it's just a
Well,
thing.
well, no, I have extra dry, flaky skin, especially on my face, but mostly everywhere. But it's because of my thyroid. It's a symptom of my
Ah, okay.
thyroid problem. Prior to that, I always had girls at school coming up to me and they had their acne and they're like, I wish I had your skin. I'm like, that's the only thing anybody will ever envy me for in high school.
No, yeah, and then yeah, absolutely, my voice cracked at the worst times too. Like that's the thing is that puberty's hard for everybody, but it's especially hard like for boys. Like and one for boys answering questions in class when you're like, yeah, the answer's 7, and then just and it doesn't matter that everyone's going through it. It just happens, but it didn't matter. It was just the worst.
Oh, I love that. Although it's I don't know, you guys have in America, you guys have your proms. You've got like spring prom, this prom, that prom. It's like y'all give up any opportunity to throw a party.
Oh, we have well, it was Harvest Dance, Winter Formal, Sadie Hawkins, and then prom were the 4 big ones. And then like there'd be like after football dances, there'd be like freshman orientation dance or whatever. Like we had an all school dance because there's 4 high schools in my hometown. Like we had dances all the time. I love going to dances.
This is where the money for education is going to in America. It's going
You
towards all
know
their
it.
debt. We didn't do that stuff here. And I mean we had school discos in primary school, so that's years prep to 6. And that was just like once a year, I think. And then in high school, you have a formal one in your last year of school. But in my school, we have 2 formals because we had 3 campuses and 2 of them were years 7 to 10. So you
Yeah.
had a year 10 formal. And then when you go to the VCE campus, which is years 11 to 12, then you had your final formal, and I went to both, and they were both lame. And I was on the formal committee, and it was stupid.
Oh wow. See, I was never on like a dance committee. I was like I was part of Link Crew, which like welcomed freshmen in. And then like I wasn't in the student government or anything like that, but I was like a drama. I was like a drama officer. Like we had like drama, like president and vice president. I was the treasurer.
Oh god, this is a government and everything over there. This is just
You know it.
getting ridiculous.
Yeah, it was really just so like we'd feel more important than all the other drama students. Basically, we didn't really do anything.
See, I was kind of ruined by watching so many American movies and TV shows because when it's like, oh, we have a formal, I'm like, why isn't it called a prom? It's like, well, because we're in Australia, so it's called a formal. I'm like, okay, gotcha. So now
We
when
had formals though.
yeah, but we like don't, we would never say the word prom. So if someone says prom here, it's like, what are you, American? Like, it's
Gotcha.
like, no, I'm not. Well, then you watch too many TV shows and movies. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. And now I pretty much do it for a living.
Yep.
But yeah, so I signed on for the formal committee, and then a bunch of other girls signed on, and then nobody did anything but me, and I was the only one who showed up to do anything. And yet everybody got thanked, and that really ticked me off because I'm like,
That's how high school goes.
you know what? Screw y'all. Actually, the most awkward thing, my year 10 formal was better than my year 12 formal. The only awkward thing about my year 10 formal was I plucked up the courage to ask the guy I had a crush on if he would go with me to the formal.
Nice.
And he said no, that he wasn't going. Not only did he end up going, he was seated at my table.
Yes. Yes.
And he was completely like, he'd forgotten that he told me this bold-faced lie. And I was just like the whole time like glaring daggers at him because I felt really embarrassed.
Yeah,
and he's just like, hi, Ashleigh, how's it going? I hate you.
Wow.
Much.
High school boys, man, we're all idiots. We really are.
Well, enough of that. Let's talk about movies instead because it's so much more fun.
Yes, it's fun to watch 25-year-old be high schoolers.
I still don't know why that's a thing. So let's kick it off with your choice for moi.
Okay. We've got Edge of 17, starring Haley Steinfeld and Haley Lou Richardson and Woody Harrelson. It's written and directed. I had the director up here. 1 second.
Kelly Freeman Craig.
Kelly Freeman Craig, and it's about Nadine, who is just turning 17, and she is dealing with her mom, who has her own problems. Her dad has passed away. Her brother and her are close, but it seems like her brother's like not trying to distance himself from her, but her brother is more on like the cool, popular side of high school, and she's kind of on the fringe. And it just kind of goes about her life. There are a few big moments in this film, but I like that it wasn't like some like big crescendo. It was just almost a day in the life movie of Nadine, and I really enjoyed this film. But the question is, did you?
Okay. As soon as you said you picked it, which was 2 months ago, not that he could remember. But as soon as I'm just like, oh, do I know this film? It sounds familiar. Is it what I'm thinking? No, it's not what I'm thinking. And then I checked it and I went, fucking hell, why did it have to be this one? The one film that I have been purposefully avoiding. I did not want to see it. I did not want to touch it. Well, a couple of reasons. One, I'd read the entire plot and I didn't like it. And
what? Okay, why do you do that? That's the weirdest thing.
Because sometimes I'll come across a film and I don't have any desire to watch it, but I still have that curiosity of what happens in it. So I go and read, and my curiosity is satisfied, and I never actually had to watch it. So win-win. But that, and I don't like Haley Steinfeld.
Well, see, that's insane to me. She is one of the best actors. Like, she's so good. Have you seen True Grit?
No.
Then shut up. You can't laugh it off when you didn't see this movie until now and you haven't seen True Grit. So you can't say she's not a good actor.
Oh, well, I've seen her in other things, and I
What,
didn't
Pitch
like it.
Perfect?
Besides that, and I've just not been a fan of her. I've seen just things that I've seen just kind of didn't do it for me and kind of irked me. And then sometimes I would see things and I was just kind of seeing from the films I've seen. I was just felt like I was
What have you
kind of
seen?
seeing.
I'm looking at her IMDb. What else have you seen if you haven't seen like
Well, I don't have
her?
it right in front of me. God, didn't know it
She's
was meant to
really
come.
good.
Agree to disagree. What a shock on this podcast.
What a
God.
shock that you haven't seen her two best films and you comment on an actor's ability. Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I've now seen Edge of 17, and my feelings towards her and her acting have only slightly improved.
Wow. Okay.
So,
So you're not going in this with a bias or anything.
that being said, you rude bugger, I didn't hate this film. I was pretty much gritting my teeth going into it, and yet it wasn't. Um, it didn't frustrate me, it didn't infuriate me, and it didn't make me feel anxious, which was one of the things I was mostly worried about.
Okay.
Because when you come into like dramas or coming of age stories, I feel like sometimes they're like so accurate to like personal experiences that you kind of feel like you're reliving it yourself, and then I get uncomfortable and I'm like, oh, like when they're in a situation where it's really embarrassing, like, oh, no, don't do it.
Yeah.
I didn't have that problem in this film because I found that there was really nothing in the story I could relate to. That's not saying that it's an unrelatable story, it just wasn't for me, which actually made it easier for me to watch. So I was texting someone at the time, and by the time I was done, they're like, so what'd you think of the movie? I'm like, you know what? It actually wasn't bad, but I wouldn't watch it again.
Okay.
So
That's fair.
I'd say I went in with really, really, really low expectations, and I came out decently surprised. So
The thing I really like about this movie is that she's the main character of the film, but she's almost not the protagonist. Like a lot of the movie is centered around like her realizing like her kind of selfishness and her like not narrow-minded view, but like my favorite part. Well, like there are a lot of favorite parts. Like her relationship with Woody Harrelson is just like some of the best. Like
yeah,
they're joking around with each other is just so good. But just like her brother, where it's like, you think my life is easy. Like, I'm the one mom calls when she is drunk and can't find her own keys. Like, I'm the one holding this whole family together. And I'm in high school too. Like, I'm supposed to be a kid too. Like, you're not the only one going through things.
mm.
And then when like uncomfortable moments, like, the moment in the car, like related that to, there's that moment. Have you seen Eighth Grade?
No.
There's a car moment in that movie. I don't want to spoil it, and I almost chose that, but we specifically said high school movies, and that's a movie that'll make you feel uncomfortable, like
Crap.
in a good way, like because you're just like on the side of Elsie Fisher, who's so good in that movie. But like you're like, God, I remember, like she goes to like a pool party with friends, and she's just like. And you remember that, like, when everyone's already, like, partying, and you're like, hey, everybody, like, welcome to the party. It's like
we
those
all
kind
went
of...
to pool parties then when we were in high school.
Hey, it was eighth grade. No, and it was like a thing where, the girl invites her because her mom tells her to. So she knows she's not really welcome. Like, it's like, oh, invite her to your birthday. And she's like, my mom wants you to come to my birthday party. Like, that kind of thing. And I've definitely been there.
See, I can't actually relate to that, despite the fact that I wasn't popular and so I was quite literally unpopular. I was known for throwing parties, and I always
Wow.
did, and people always came, and I especially like went out all on Halloween, and literally people would come and they would party, and I would still have like the popular people going, "Oh, Ashleigh's party was great." I'm like, but there still wasn't enough to get me in with the popular people.
No, it never is.
Yeah.
But with this movie, like in that car where, she thinks she wants to make out with the guy and then she doesn't. I liked that he stopped. Like I feel like in like coming of age movies, like every high school dude is like some super aggressive, like like caveman person. And not that there aren't guys like that out there, but just like not every single person's like that. And I like that he was like, well, you invited me here. You made the first movie. Like, I'm confused of what you want. And it
Yeah.
made it seem very like it was very human characters. Like, not everybody in like high school movies, like they're always like one note, like a jock or a nerd or a goth. Like it's not Breakfast Club. And I like that a lot. And I don't know, like Haley Steinfeld's performance in this movie, because I saw her in True Grit and I was like, this girl is so good. And then she disappeared for a while. And I see like on her IMDb, she did a bunch of movies that I just didn't watch, like Ender's Game and Begin Again. Yeah, not for
Ender's
me.
Game. That was one. There we go. I like that film. I don't remember her in it, so that says
she's
it
in a lot of like even lately she was like in the end of the new Charlie's Angels, but she was like the new recruit and she wasn't like in the movie. I was like, this is a weird role for you to take because you're bigger than all three of these angels, like maybe besides Kristen Stewart. That movie was so bad. The 2000s one is so much fun. It's bad, but it's at least fun.
I love
I
rewatched
it right before I watched the new Charlie's Angels. Like, this is great. I do not remember it being this much fun. And then
I remember you live tweeting, and you were just like, "Wait, is that Melissa McCarthy?"
Yeah, there's so many good like young ass Sam Rockwell still dancing in that movie. Lucy Liu's a badass. Like, but no, I really like this was right after. What just came out? Like, I feel like this movie, 8th grade, and then it was Lady Bird. Lady Bird was right around this time, and I feel like Lady Bird got all the like the hype and the Oscars and stuff like that. And I feel like this one really got pushed to the side. So I am glad you liked it more than you thought you would. I'm sad you didn't like it as much as me, but this is like a thing where I feel like females like always get like the best coming of age stories, like 8th grade, like Lady Bird, like Edge of 17, and then guys' movies are always like American Pie. It's like, oh, cool. Ours is just about getting laid. Dope.
I guess that's actually a fair point. I think the closest we've come to a decent male coming of age story is with Love, Simon, where
I need to see that. I hear it's really, really good.
It really is so good because it is dealing with just the complications of being in high school and being a teenager, but then add to that, trying to come to terms with your sexuality, because for most of that film, well, at least most of the beginning, he's not really fully aware of his own sexuality, so it is a journey for him, but it also gives you plenty of other viewpoints from his friends who are like, dating, and he's so in his own woman, like not even noticing that somebody likes him, and then she's just like, I've kind of been super obvious about it. And he's oblivious, and just dealing with like the rumor mill at school, which is definitely a realistic thing.
Oh God, yes.
But yeah, it was amazing, and I definitely shed a few tears, but I don't know if I don't remember if they were sad. I think they were happy tears. Or maybe they were sad. I don't remember. Maybe they were both. You know me. I cry at the drop of a hat.
Perks of Being a Wallflower is another good one too. I just watched that recently.
I've not watched that one either.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, be ready for some real tears, that's for sure.
I don't know. In all honesty, I know I picked high school, but I do tend to kind of avoid that, I guess, because I'm just like, I don't want to relive that shit.
That's fair.
I don't know. Watching this film, it didn't feel like a coming of age story that much to me.
Okay.
It actually, because to me it felt like everything that's happening with all the characters could technically be happening at any age. You've got, because I felt like it's more like about a family dealing with the aftermath of losing the patriarch of the family, who was literally, as described, like the glue that kept everybody together. So for Haley Steinfeld's character, it's, that was like her one person who she felt was always there for her, always had her back, not counting her best friend, but just that one person in the family who got her, and then he's gone and she's got nothing. And she just sees her mom as being, selfish and self-indulging, and her brother is having a giant inflated ego. But she's so self-obsessed that she doesn't realize that, hey, like there was that moment where she's talking to her mom, played by the amazing Kira Sedgwick, and she says, "My husband," and she says, "Well, why do you always have to say that? You can go get another husband, but he was my only dad." And it was just the fact that in that moment she didn't understand that that was her husband. That was the man she was in love with, who she had vowed to spend the rest of her life with, and he was gone. And she's suddenly having to have that partner who's always there, and now she has to try and figure out everything on her own. She's obviously not dealing with it. And then there's her son, who he's kind of now had to fill in the role of the dad.
Yeah.
And he's still like, I'm a kid still. I don't want to do this, but I've been forced to do this. And of course, then of course dealing with the fun love that begins between Nadine's brother and best friend. And it's just like, in her, I was surprised that her friend at no point, that Krista didn't like turn around and slap her in the face, being, why, I'm so sick of always having to, you know, be your soundboard and do this for you, and it always is about you. Can't I have something for once? But she, oh my god, she's a
Good friend.
patient
Yeah.
as fuck. But she's just like, look, I'm gonna go over here and be happy. Like, I'll be here when you're ready to sort your shit out. But Nadine, I guess in that moment, because it's all about Nadine, I can understand, while it's not cool, I understand it, because in her it was she'd lost her dad, and now she was losing, in her mind, the last person she had left, who was, you know, her ride or die. And so, but again, I could kind of see all those things happening at any age, and, you know, even if they were in their 20s, and suddenly it's like you lose someone, and they're just the domino effect of how it impacts everybody. So yeah, I didn't necessarily see it as coming of age, but when you're dealing with the moments of, you know, that awkwardness, when, you know, Nadine's not really clicking with understanding there's a guy who likes you,
Mm-hmm.
and you're kind of being a bitch, but then it's almost like she's aware she's being a bitch, but she's still doing it anyway because she's liking the attention.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so glad that there was Woody Harrelson's character, who's like, knows that she's full of shit and tells her that she's full of shit.
Yeah.
Like any other teacher, if a student comes up to you and says, I'm going to kill myself, they go, oh my god, now we have to stage an intervention, and we have to da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and he's just there like, yeah, I'm going to go kill myself too, because I have a really annoying student who comes at me every freaking day.
Yeah.
Because he
It's
knows
great.
she's not going to do it.
And that's what I really do like about this film, is that, and I'll push back slightly. I understand your points that this could happen, but I don't think you'd have the same relationship with the brother if he was in his 20s. If he was like in, you know, post college and lost his dad, then, you know, you still do have that time that you got with your dad of growing up and being a kid in high school. He didn't get that time, and now he's already the dad of the family while being a senior. And same with Nadine, like she doesn't, like the more time you have, like the more time you get to grow up. And now she's you kind of see that like she didn't have time to grow up and not realize that not everything is about her. Like that she's not the only one who lost someone. So I do think that it is like a maturity thing. And granted, like age doesn't equal maturity. We've seen that with all the Karens around the United States. But
worldwide, technically.
yeah. But it definitely, like, I really do understand your points, and they're valid, but I do still think this does fit into a coming of age story. Even though it's not like going through like I said, it's not like this like big epiphany. It's more of like, oh my gosh, like there's other people around me, and there's other people going through this kind of the same things I am. And that's what I did like. It's because, you know, I feel like high school movies are always like, man, no one understands me. Like, oh, my life is so much harder. Parents just don't understand. And we'll get into that with Pump Up the Volume. But I felt like this was a much more mature look at coming of age, of like a much more realistic of like, yeah, there are adults that are going through hard times. There are other people outside of the main character that are dealing with the same things, and let's talk about that. And maybe you're the asshole. Like, you run into an asshole in the morning, you ran into an asshole. You run into assholes all day, you just might be the asshole.
Yeah, no, she definitely, while she is the central focus of the story, it is interesting how the story isn't there to, make her come off as amazing, and,
Yeah.
she's just misunderstood. And if people just gave her a chance, maybe things would be different. It's like,
If she just got a makeover, like,
she's all that. Hell
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's instead of, well, you're very standoffish, you're very judgmental, you literally don't bother with anybody. And even when there's a person, like watching Erwin trying to be so nice, like, obviously her outfit was crap, and he's just like, oh, I like your sweater, like, that's a really nice sweater. And she's like, yeah, thank you. It's like, he's literally
Yeah.
trying here.
He's trying so hard.
And
And that is like one of those uncomfortable moments, because like you've been a guy where you're like, how do I start this conversation with a girl I've never talked to before? Nice sweater.
and it was not that nice a sweater. It was just a regular sweater. And it was just like, I'm just like, you know what you do in that circumstance? Even if it's like you're not like interested in the person, you just say something nice back. It's just nice. And she's just like, nah. No,
Yep.
I'm not gonna. She's still in that moment going, poor me, nobody likes me. Da, da, da. It's like, what's this guy, chop liver?
Yeah.
And I feel like this entire family could have benefited from grief counseling.
Yes.
If they'd had therapy as soon as Dad died, they'd be in a much better place. Because it's not until Darian just blows up politely at her, and he's just like, you know what? I got problems too.
Yeah.
And here's my life, and it's me trying to look for a college in town. So instead of going out and living my own life, so I can be here to pick up the pieces should it be needed. And it's like, that's not fair to me. And just, it was a verbal slap in Nadine's
It
face,
was.
which I really did like, where it's like, it finally got through to her that it's like, oh, I actually suck. Like, I know I've been saying this whole film, I suck, but it's more in like you're fishing for compliments type way.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you put yourself down, stuff. No, that's not true. Which her friend pretty much does the entire time.
Yeah.
She's drunk, puking her guts out over the toilet, still going, I listened to the voicemail of my voice the other day, and I'm just like, oh my god, who would ever want to be with it? And she's just like, no, you're just drunk. It's okay. And I'm just like, and then by the end of it, it's like, oh no, I actually do suck. I'm a shitty person.
Mm-hmm. And I really like that guy or girl, like at the lead of this film, like it doesn't hold their hand. It doesn't like, make excuses for them. And even if like you're on like Nadine's side, like, oh yeah, like I totally like that brother's speech, like really wakes you up to the fact that like she's not the only one going through this. Like there are other people out there having hard times, including in her own family. Like she blames her mom, like, for doing all this. But like at the end of the day, like her mom lost a husband too. Like the dad didn't just die for Nadine, like he died for this entire family. And so like other people are struggling with this same death. And yeah, like Haley Lou Richardson, and she's another one you should watch. There's a movie called Support the Girls that's really, really good.
I was gonna watch that.
You'd like it. You really, really like it. But yeah, I really like this movie and revisiting it. It's one of those movies like where oh man, I love this, and I just haven't gotten the chance to watch it again.
Right.
And so revisiting it, I really, really enjoyed it. But yeah, let's move on to your choice, because I want to talk about Christian Slater.
Oh, we're done with Edge of 17 already, are we?
I mean, what you got any other thoughts about it?
Well, there is one thing that I want to say is that given it was Kelly's directorial debut, there was just a way that it's filmed and written that I think is very clever, in the sense that it's both from Nadine's perspective, but also from an outside perspective. It's somehow blended the two, in the sense that for a decent amount of the film, you can kind of get this idea of why Nadine thinks her mom is, flaky and not caring and all this, because we've seen these little snippets where you're just like, oh man, she's actually not that great of a mom. And then
Yeah.
you see her brother and you're like, well, he's kind of a bit of a douchebag. But as the story goes on, you kind of see more of like the outside perspective where you think, okay, hang on, she's the mom's actually really sad. If you that scene in the car when she picks up Nadine, where she's just kind of saying what life is like for her, and it's just kind of coming out, and Nadine is just like, oh my god, she's going on about herself. It's like, no, she's actually having a bit of a breakdown right now, and
Yeah,
saying
she's trying to
she's
open
not
up.
saying, I'm not coping with being a single parent, and Nadine didn't want to hear it. And then you can see with her brother, there's just those moments where you see the mom's always contacting him and the mom's always putting like that pressure on him. And just even as brief as those moments are, it just gives you that moment of going, hang on, maybe the way she's seeing things isn't actually accurate, which makes it all the more impactful when kind of her view of everything changes 180. And it's that better. And so it's kind of like, you can see where they had their faults, but I think most of the ball was in Nadine's court. But, could the brother have tried to be a little bit more of a decent brother? Yeah. Could the mom have tried to be more of this? But I find that it's all a give and take, and especially when you're dealing with grief, everyone's got to pitch in, and Nadine was not doing jack
No,
shit. She was just like, I'm going to cause a ruckus, and you all have to cater to me. And people like that are very emotionally draining.
very.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you give it out of 5?
I give it a solid 4.5 out of 5.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Okay.
find it very. I know you said you probably won't rewatch this again, but I do find it very rewatchable. I understand like your points of like these coming of age movies give you anxiety, and it's almost like 8th grade is like up there where I still haven't rewatched it because there's just like so many moments you're just like, oh come on.
Does
But
not make you
I
want to
didn't
watch
find
it.
those moments in this movie, and I really enjoyed kind of. It's not a twist, but it is a different look at these coming of age movies where
Yeah.
the person that you're viewing this world through isn't always right. Like their outside perspective or their unique personality isn't like this cute little thing. Like, no, sometimes you're just a dick.
Yeah. And you were also right when you say that it was the one time where they didn't depict every high school male as just trying to get in someone's pants.
Yeah, like the brother wasn't a douchebag. Like he was a good older brother. Like the friend didn't betray her and then like become this Regina George mean girl. She was like, no, like I'm trying to live my life as well. Like I'm sorry that me and your brother like have this connection, but we do. And you can either be with us and be happy for both of us because we're both happy, or you can wallow in your misery and your sadness and your like eye suckiness with you
Mm-hmm.
do with everything. Like it'd be, the thing, like she even says, like it would be one thing if you felt like just about this, but you feel like this about everything, so it's not surprising.
Yeah, and I like what you said about the guy she had the crush on, and the fact that when she said stop, he stopped, and you can't blame him in anything that was going on. You could just see like that moment where he's like, what do you want? And she's like, what do you mean? It's like, that wasn't a complicated question. It's like,
Yeah,
you are sending 50 different signals right now. Any person's head would be spinning.
yeah,
And if you're in high school and you're a guy and a girl messages you saying she wants sex and will happily
that
do a million other things, are you gonna say
monologue.
no? Like, what guy turns that down? It's just like, I'm a horny teenager, yeah, sure thing.
Yeah,
But then you get there and you're like, what the hell? And then he's like, I should have listened to my friends. Like, yeah, sometimes in these cases, you really should. I'm gonna give this a 3.8 out of 5.
ooh, very nice. I'm very satisfied with that.
Because I feel like 3.5 is too low, but I feel like a 4 is too high, so we'll go 3.8.
Yeah.
That brings us to my choice. This is one of my favorite films ever, which is Pump Up the Volume from 1990, just a year before I was born. And it's directed by Alan Moyle and stars Christian Slater and Samantha Mathis. And it follows Christian Slater's character, Mark Hunter, who he is a newly transferred student to a high school in Phoenix, Arizona. And he starts up an FM pirate radio station where he very brazenly airs the dirty laundry of his high school, which causes, well, it causes a lot of things to happen. So rewatching this, I bust a gut laughing at the opening line, which is the first thing Christian Slater says in this film. He's not on the screen, but he's narrating it because he's starting his broadcast, and he says, "Do you ever get the feeling everything in America is seriously fucked up?"
Yeah.
And I
Oof.
cracked up laughing. I'm like, oh, the timing of this is just perfect.
It's just so good.
Yeah, I was laughing at that, and my mum was asleep, and all the doors were open. I went, "Oops, shouldn't have done that." But what did you think of this one? How have I done?
This is such a 90s movie that like it's hard not to love, because early Christian Slater is definitely a dreamboat. There was it seemed there was a lot that had potential for me to like it. I didn't hate this movie, not at all.
Okay.
But like like I said, the parents are nice. He has no reason to hate his parents in this movie. They're just good people. Like, maybe like watching this movie as like a teenager, I'd be like, yeah, mom and dad, get out of his room. He's trying to broadcast radio. He said he's going to get good grades and you just don't understand him. But like watching this now, I'm like, his mom and dad are just asking him how his day is. And his dad actually seems like a nice guy and does the right thing at the end of the film. Like,
I think mostly what seemed to aggravate him and set him off a lot was their ignorance. Like, he's a new student to the school, and it took him 5 seconds to go, wow, this place is supremely fucked up. And there's his dad going, it's the best school in the county, da 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 da, and he's like giving all this praise, and the son's just like, dude, are we talking about the same place?
yeah, but the movie doesn't tell you what's fucked up until literally the final scene. Granted, the principal and, the enforcer guy is an asshole, but like they pull the kids off the bus at the beginning, but you don't see what happens to them. You don't see them get expelled.
No, but you do get told it. The very first person that they talk about was Cheryl, the girl who was pregnant, and she's listening to the radio, and she was the girl at the start of the film who was called into the principal's office. So then we're told during his radio broadcast she was expelled for getting knocked up.
Oof.
Which,
I missed that part.
That's why you don't pay attention to anything I give you.
Well, it's like, and then, when the kid commits suicide, like I wanted them to kind of linger on that a little bit more, because that was like an intense part. And it felt like, he had like the beginnings of it, but then, he's like, no, this is the establishment's fault. And it's like, no, dude, like you had a chance to really make a difference in this moment and you treated it as a joke. And like he felt like a little remorse about it. And I'm not, it wasn't Christian Slater's fault that happened. Like I'm not trying to place blame on that moment, but it felt like, they kind of, the movie itself kind of brushed over it. And then when the school brushes over it, it doesn't have the same effect. So it should have been like where like Christian Slater's like really dealing with it and the school is really dealing with it. But then, or like, the kids are really dealing with it, but then the school's like, oh, life goes on. And so like that would have made the school seem like this evil empire, which it is. And then, I don't know, like I wanted more stuff with the principal and like her enforcer guy. Cause like all he was doing was like turning off a radio every once in a while. It's like, hey, get out of here. It's like, okay.
He beat up a student.
That's at the last 10 minutes of the movie. Like again, this everything comes to a head in the very end, and then when he gets arrested, I was waiting for like the fallout of everything that happens, and then the credits roll. I was like, wait, what? Like I wanted more from the movie, so that's a good sign. But then when it just kind of leaves you on like kind of hanging, and not like the good kind of like cliffhanger, like oh man, that was so perfect. Like it was just like there was more story to tell from this.
See, I get what you're saying, kind of, but I disagree. Shocker. because for me, it was. I feel like everything with certain movies, it's like you have to know right away who the villain is, why they're the villain, and this is different. It's being less cinematic and being a little bit more realistic. Here's this guy, and he is airing everybody's dirty laundry. So the first thing that people are doing, like the PTA, they're like, he's the bad seed. He's what's wrong with everything. He's the problem. So everybody's blaming him instead of actually stopping to assess and listen to what he's saying. All the kids are screaming because they're like, we're living it, so we get it. So they're praising him. But all the adults in the story are just looking for a scapegoat, and they're calling that crap out. And so I like that it takes a little longer for everybody to realize who are the real villains and why, because that's more accurate to life. You watch the bad guys getting away with shit all the time because nobody wants to see, nobody really cares, and especially if it comes to like kids, it's like, so do we care? And I felt the way it actually depicted the teen's suicide was also pretty authentic. There was a film that I reviewed the other month, Last Call, and it was this amazingly powerful one-shot film that was so emotional I couldn't cry. There's a weird statement, but it's true.
Okay.
And it's about a guy who he's trying to call a suicide hotline, but he calls the wrong number and he ends up talking to somebody else instead. But the whole time you're watching this movie, you're like, this guy, he's not looking for someone to actually tell him not to do it. He's not looking to be talked out of it. He just wants that one last person to talk to kind of understand where he's feeling in that moment. And I felt that's exactly what that kid was. It didn't matter what Mark said to him. He was going to take that gun and he was going to shoot himself. That was 100% going to happen. And he wasn't, and I can't blame Mark because he deals with people who are calling and, pretending that, they're being molested by their brother for a laugh because, haha, that's so funny. And so you can see that for most part, he's like not buying it. And then he's kind of like, well, maybe he is serious. But he's a teenager too. An adult would probably have a different reaction to that and go, okay, wait, let's stop and assess. But he's the same age. He's not really going to look at that and go, oh, he's actually going to go kill himself. And I think that was the part that hit him the hard. Like, yeah, he blames himself because he's like, I never thought that he would actually do it. And then he did. And then it's just everybody's reflecting, but why did he do it? And it's just like, because it doesn't seem like he has a bad life, but he was really sad because he was all alone. And it didn't even matter that there's somebody there saying, I'm all alone too. It's just like, nah, that doesn't help me. Adios.
No, I understand that. And it just seemed like like the movie just needed to go farther for me, honestly. It felt very surface level. And like you say that I wanted more stuff with the principal just to show how truly evil the school was. Like, I don't need to be spoon-fed the villain. The movie does it for you. Like, it's such a shallow message of like, adults evil, kids understand, you don't get it. Like, that's really all the movie's saying. And then especially with the girl that like microwaves her stuff, you don't even realize she's the daughter of the principal until she shows up to the PTA meeting.
She's not.
And she's not? Oh, I thought,
No.
like, I got that, like, from their interaction, because otherwise, why would the kid be let up and, like, talk to the microphone? Like, the kid just, like, walks up and just, like, gets, like...
Well, they just were surprised, so that's why the principal was quickly going, you were our top student, what are you doing? And she's trying to get her to nick off.
Like, I wanted more from other kids. Like, just having these, like, little, like, vignettes almost. Like, I wanted to know about the punk rocker kid who got expelled. I wanted to know about the girl that microwaved her face. Like, it just felt so surface level to me. And like, so there was like some good things. Like, if you want a movie to go deeper, that means like there are things that they're touching on that you like, but it didn't feel like authentic to me, like whatsoever, of what the movie was talking about. It was just like like it felt like an adult wrote this. Like, hey, kids don't think adults understand anything. Okay, we're gonna make a movie about that. We're gonna put on the radio because music, yeah. And then that's where the movie ends.
See, I don't. I noticed that they made a lot of subtle choices, which again I felt like was trying to like do from the outsider perspective, those little things that are happening that nobody's really taking notice of. And maybe it's because I've seen it so many times, I pick up on them a lot better. But there were little things that were kind of there to imply there's something more sinister going on. Like, towards the start of the film, the very first time you hear the kids in school actually listening to a recording of Mark's station, and it just does one short take of assistant douchebag, and it just seems like it's so nothing. It's like, oh, he heard the radio, he's going to go and kill. No, what he was actually doing was breaking into a student's locker. In that moment, he had broken in, taken something out of the student's locker, and then locked it back up, which I know they're not meant to do. They're not allowed to do that. So that, for me, there were little bits like that scattered throughout the film, which were there to give you that moment of going, hang on a tick, something ain't kosher here. And I kind of appreciate that subtlety, because it's just like, yeah, nobody is completely aware. And I like how with each character going through something, being that they're teenagers, they all think they're the only one that it's happening to, so they don't speak out about it. And then this guy comes along and he's blasting it for everyone to hear, and they're going, oh shit, it's more than me. It's happening to a lot of people. Let's make this stop, basically. But yeah, it was the subtle choices in the film that I appreciate, that and this awesome soundtrack.
Yeah, I feel like one of the songs is like not from True Detective, but it was used as like a True Detective. I was trying to think of what season, but I'm pretty sure it was like one of the True Detective like opening credits, like the Everybody Knows.
Oh, love that one.
That's a good song.
It is. I love all the songs in this film. Although, one scene that I will say, I even it doesn't matter if I watch it, as good looking as Christian Slater is, then see, I had such a crush on him after this movie, and Heathers, even though he was.
See, I don't get that. Heathers, I don't understand. He's the most toxic motherfucker in Heathers.
Watched it and you hated it. I can't believe that. I can't comprehend it. I saw your Journey video. I was just like, Heathers! And you're like, no. You're like, oh, we can't be friends.
Not for me.
I don't know. There was something about him that was weird that I really...
Trust me, like, I was literally just thinking of that as I watched this movie. I was just like, yeah, like, girls always complain about toxic relationships, then post that Christian Slater from Heathers is their favorite guy. I'm like,
I said he was cute. I said he was cute. I didn't say I wanted to date him. I'm not prepared to possibly lose fingers or stuff like that. But as cute as he is, I do like that, he has an actual problem with it's like, I'm on the radio, blah, blah, blah. But when he's around people, he's very shy. He's very timid.
I did like that as well. I did like that.
I think he sold that very well, it's almost like split personality, and I think that he sold that performance. But yet, just that moment where he's shirtless, and then Nora gets shirtless, and then they're just, like, slow dancing together, and I'm like, why?
I was gonna say, like, I didn't understand the need for the nudity. I felt like it would have been a more genuine moment without it. It felt like a cheap excuse for boobs. For like literally no reason, because they don't even like kiss or sleep together in that moment.
Yeah.
So like it felt like a real cheap excuse for boobs in the movie. And yeah, like that, not that took me out of it, but I don't know, like there were a lot of things that I did like about this film, but it felt like they stopped short of so much. Like they really could have discussed a lot of things. And I mean, that was the 90s. It was like a very like, anti-adult movie, and they kind of just stopped at that for me. Like maybe if I watch this movie more, I'll get the kind of the deeper, subtle things to it. But for this one-time watch, it felt like it was like it was like therapy light almost. It was like, okay, there's this. It was like the frosting and no cake for me.
See, that would make me happy because I love frosting and I'm happy to have that without the cake.
Yeah, but there's no sustenance to it.
Who cares? Frosting's delicious. So you didn't feel like there was anything in this film that is still relevant today?
Not that there's relevance to it, but again, like they don't touch on anything that hasn't, like I'm never gonna like, you know, use this film as like, hey, this is a really good like timepiece of like what kids are going through. Like
Right.
I'm never gonna reference this of like, hey, this movie explains teen angst and, you know, anxiety and depression and high school like fears. I'm never gonna reference Pump Up the Volume. There are good moments in it, and I think, you know, like I'm not a big Christian Slater fan, but I think he does really well in this movie. But with how the parents, I realize the parents are ignorant to it, of what's going on, but they should have, I don't know, if you want to do that, you need to make it more, you do need to make it more obvious, because otherwise, like, his whole thing is like that he had to move for his dad's job. A lot of us, I had to move for my dad's job, and I didn't start a radio broadcast complaining that my entire life sucks. Like, I'm just saying, like, there are worse problems than simply having to move because your parents are like have to move for work. But yeah, there were things I liked about this film. But you know, the English teacher, like we just got done watching Edge of 17, where you truly get to know this teacher that the student has a relationship with. And then you have this English teacher or writing teacher, whatever she is. And like, oh, she says one thing and she gets fired. That's all we know about her. And she likes his writing, kinda. It's like, well, like all these periphery characters all have something, but they don't ever tell me what it is.
See, again, that for me was the subtle thing. The fact that she was the only teacher who was willingly listening to Mark's broadcast, and she was enjoying it. She liked everything. Because she got it. She understood what he was doing, and I think she was actually taking that in, as opposed to everybody is like, turn it off, shut it down, let's call the police. And so I like that they do those little things. I don't know, for me, I do get everything you're saying. I just feel like everything it did was so right for me, because I do feel there was a lot about this that I could relate to. It's on a bigger scale, but it reminds me of being in school, where it's like going to the teachers, asking for help because like, oh, I'm being severely bullied, and next thing you know, I'm the one in detention for dobbing in my bully, you know?
Yeah.
So that did happen. But
I'm sure it did.
So it kind of makes me look at that, where it's just like, wow, you can't, you think that you're meant to be turning to these people and you can't. And that, and I've walked away with going that there are just so many good quotes in this film, or at least for me, like the two that always stood out to me, although now the opening line is going to stand out for me a lot more now thanks to COVID. But one was I always loved when Mark said, being in a fucked up place at a fucked up time does not mean, well, at least it's screwed up, but being in a screwed up place at a screwed up time does not mean that you're screwed up. And I love how that was put, because I think that's a lot of people in their teenage years going, my life sucks, my life is so this. And it's like, maybe it's not. Maybe this is just a rough time for you, but it's gonna pass. That, and when they announce was Bionic, believe it or not, I care, this crappy, stupid counseling thing.
It's such a high school thing. I laughed so hard when I read that.
And Nora and her friend are talking about it, and they're like, open from, like, what was it, like 8 till 3. And she says, oh, it's 8 o'clock, so I guess it's okay to kill myself. And the friend goes, oh my god, it's after 3, so I guess I'm totally fucked.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. So yeah, it's the subtleties that I think work, because it's showing that this isn't about any one particular person, it's about the whole. And so I felt like that the fact that it's scattered and you're just seeing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and that kind of just for me shows that how wide of a net this was, and that it's really not about one person. And I think even for Mark, he has his moment where he's just like, man, I thought my problems were bad, but everybody else is kind of really fucked.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah.
I get that. I think I just wanted more from the movie. For me at least, I just wanted more like from Mark, from these characters. I did like how, Mark was kind of a chicken shit, when push came to shove for a little bit, like, cause he's still a kid. Like, he didn't know this was all gonna happen. And
There
cause like,
were a
on
lot
the
of
out,
smirking kids in that film.
no, yeah. Like, that's the thing, is that this is when the 25-year-olds playing high schoolers really showed, is when they were all just smoking.
I know, I'm just like, oh my god, I know I was smoking in high school, but Jesus Christ, if I'd done that in home, my mom would have been screaming the roof off.
Oh yeah, I could never have gotten away with that.
Do you think maybe if you'd watched it like more in the 90s or early 2000s, you'd have a different opinion of it?
I think if I'd watched this younger, I probably would. But even watching like movies like Breakfast Club and stuff like that, like Breakfast Club, like it had that same kind of message where everyone is the same. But I got to know those characters, like I got to know their stories, and there are plenty of problems with Breakfast Club. Like believe me, like a lot of that movie does not hold up. But at the core of it, it's about five very cliched, stereotypical people coming together to realize like they're all not that different, and that was kind of the same message of this one. But like Breakfast Club gave me that deeper resolution from each person, and gave me like like especially like like just so much about it resonated with me and still does. And say I watched Eighth Grade, and like I watched Eighth Grade how like 2-3 years ago that it came out. And that's a movie about a little girl in eighth grade, and somehow I related to that more. So, like, it doesn't have to be like that if I watched this earlier, if I watched this younger. But this movie just felt very not dated, but like I said, like I just keep going back to the word shallow. Like there was a lot of good
Oof,
beginnings of this film,
rough.
but it just felt like it wasn't finished, and especially the ending. I was waiting for the resolution of the movie, but the resolution was just that he got caught. Okay.
I admit that I've never been satisfied with that ending. I totally agree with you there because I'm not a fan of cliffhangers, and this is just like even worse. It's like not even a cliffhanger. It just ends.
Yeah.
And I'm not okay with that because I'm as soon as it ends and it rolls to credits, I'm going, okay, but what happened? What happened when his dad found out that he's actually the one who's been doing all this stuff? Is dad going to come into his defense now, knowing that he was right all along? Is he actually going to go to jail for all this, or are they
Yeah,
actually going to do some
are the
proper
kids gonna get
investigations?
re-enrolled? Is the teacher gonna get re-enrolled? Like there's so much unanswered, and like I did like the fact that now every kid is out there on the radio like talking about their problems and stuff like that. I thought that was a nice touch. Um, but it just like it's still Mark's story. Like you still have to end Mark's story, and it felt like it wasn't ended.
Yeah, it was just he had this weird like 90s mic drop moment, but it's just like, but we don't feel closure when you did that. Usually people
Yeah.
drop the mic and you start cheering, whereas this it's just like, was that it? Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
feel like he should have gone out anonymous. Like I know the news or is gonna release his identity and stuff like that, but that should have been like the end of the movie, like him getting quietly arrested, without the news, like so kids don't know who it was. Like that was the whole thing, is that like he was this faceless, nameless person that was speaking for everyone, and then when you identify him as like the shy kid from school, you're like, wait, that's who that is? Oh,
Mm.
okay. Like it should have been like this faceless, nameless person, so anyone could be this. Like you could put your face in any of this voice, and I don't know, but yeah,
I appreciate that Nora's investigative in why do I struggle with this fucking word? Nora's investigative skills, that she's listening so intently to everything he says and she's
she's got
taking
like
notes.
the whiteboard, the Charlie Day whiteboard, like.
She's like,
No, we
yes,
said he had lunch on the stairs, and this guy had lunch on the stairs. He's got a fish taco. And he's
I really like that's kind of stalker territory as well. It's just like,
it was a little much, especially when she kept coming up to him at school. I'm like, lady, let him be anonymous.
yeah, but yeah, I still have to say how much I love the subtle things, and I admit that there were things that I again noticed in this viewing that I didn't notice the last time. Like, there was him walking home, he's walking down the street, and a newspaper on the lawn catches his eye, and he picks it up, and it's a headline about him, and it's saying basically radio DJs suspected of postage bombs or this, and it's just like, wow, they're using him as a scapegoat for everything. It's like, yeah, we're gonna totally play you as the villain to distract from what's going on. So again, little nuggets every now and then, but I understand. You're American. You want things larger than life.
It's not larger than life. This movie tried to be larger than life, and it fell short. Like, it tried to have too many messages and didn't complete any of them.
Well, obviously it did for me. I felt very, very satisfied with this film, and I loved rewatching it. It was fabulous.
That's good. So what do you give Pump Up the Volume out of 5?
I'm going to go with another different rating, and I'm going to say I give it a 4.2.
4.2. Okay, so I'm going to give it a 3.07.
Okay.
There were things that I really did enjoy about this film, but like you said, like, I'm not going to rewatch it. And the main thing is, I'm not going to reference it to anyone about a good coming of age movie. And that, like, I'll always recommend, even now, dated as it is, I'll recommend Breakfast Club. I'll recommend Lady Bird and 8th Grade and Edge of 17. But this movie it missed the mark a lot for me, with a lot of it. So there was nuggets I really liked, but it just came up short. All frosting, no cake.
Like, seriously, we just had cake, and I was disappointed that there wasn't enough frosting.
See, I'm opposite, man. Like, I don't even like double stuffed Oreos. That's too much frosting. I need cookie. I need a proper ratio. You say Americans like bigger and better. Look at me. I'm being fair and balanced with my desserts.
Okay, now we have to ask a serious question.
Okay.
How do you eat your Oreos?
All together, baby.
Boring.
I love them.
Actually, I only do that with red velvet Oreos.
See, you know what? I have not strayed from traditional Oreos. I refuse.
Really?
I'm not. Maybe if I know there's like a funfetti Oreo, and I'm like a low key funfetti fanatic.
I don't even. What is that?
It's like frosting with, like, bits of like sprinkles in it or something. I don't even know. I just know it when I eat it.
Funfetti.
But yeah, I'm a traditional Oreo guy. Like, just no double stuff, no red velvet, no peanut butter or whatever. Like, someone showed me, like, there's like, I got a text like Halloween Oreos with like orange frosting, and just the worst.
I used to always have regular, and then I went to Bali, and every day the hotel would give you like mini bar snacks.
Yeah.
And the one that they had was a whole thing of Oreos, but it wasn't regular Oreos. It was like peanut butter and chocolate Oreos, or just peanut butter or something. And I was just like, okay, we'll give this a go. I'm like, oh my God, this is actually so good. I was going through them like hotcakes. It was crazy. Unfortunately, I got sick, so you can just imagine where those Oreos ended up.
Oh no! See, like the hotel I worked at, the Hilton, they had like fresh baked cookies for all check-in and guests. So every time I'd leave the shift, I'd always get a cookie.
Aw. See, actually, what made me sick was eating apples.
Apples?
They say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, do not exceed the limit of one a day.
Yes.
We ended up saying like
2 apples a day will fucking kill you.
Yeah, we ended up we went from one hotel to the next, and the next one was like a private villa type place where it's like you have your own lap pool, and it was absolutely beautiful. And pretty much like twice a day, someone would come in, they'd give you your food, they'd make the bed, and they'd also replace the fruit basket. And I was just having this weird period where it was like I had morning sickness, but I wasn't pregnant. The smell of everything was making me sick. So I was just eating these delicious Granny Smith apples that they kept refreshing every day, and they were the only fruit that I ate. So it was like 3 days in a row, I've eaten like 9 apples. No, don't do it, people. Do not. If there's an apple diet, don't do it. Don't do it.
I don't know. it's so specific, but at California Adventure at Disneyland,
Okay.
there's a corn dog stand.
Okay.
And with your corn dog, you get a bag of Lay's potato chips or you get a bag of sliced Fuji apples. I cannot tell you how good those apple slices are, Ashleigh. I don't know what hormones, additives, don't care. They're
Fuji
all
apples are delicious.
no, like when I tell you this, I wish I could send you these, or I wish you could come to Disneyland whenever, who knows when, if and when it's ever opening. But they are so good. Like, and especially after you have like a salty ass corn dog, eating these apple slices, it's Disney's known for its sweet treats. I have yet to have something that's better than these apple slices.
That is so crazy. Better than a cookie?
It's tough to say, but
You
I
like
would.
your cookies.
I do, but I'm very particular. I'm very particular of like, where it needs to be crunchy, where it needs to be hot, where it needs to be like, doughy. These apple slices don't miss. I will say that. I don't know which is better, but these apple slices do not miss.
Okay, if you were going to be executed tomorrow, and you had to choose between the dollar tacos that you like to get and these Fuji apple slices, which would you choose?
Well, that's totally different because apple slices are a side. They're not a main dish. Dollar tacos are a main dish because I'll eat like 40 of them.
Yeah, but they could have given you a lot of slices of apple.
I'll go dollar tacos for that one, but my death row meal, the dessert might include those. I get a 3-course meal for my death row meal, of course. But those apple slices might be on the menu.
Well,
Especially if I'm on death row, hell yes, I'm being like, all right, so here's what I want. You got to go to Disneyland, California Adventure, on the boardwalk. There's a corn dog stand. Get me a corn dog with apple slices. You can have the corn dog. I'll take the apple slices.
have you ever heard of Dave Allen?
No.
Dave Allen was a British comedian back in the day. I think mostly like in the 70s. And he had this really old school kind of skit show where he would also be like sitting in a chair and he's kind of in front of, I'm pretty sure he was in front of a live audience. And he's telling these jokes, so it's almost like live comedy, but it's in the moment. I think it was all like improvised, but then it would also cut away to actual skits he did. So, and I loved it. And there was this one skit of a guy is meant to be, I think, like Spanish, but it's like from a different era, and he's about to be executed. And so they ask, what is your final request? And he whispers something to the guard, and the guard's like, oh, okay. So he goes off and he brings back a woman. And so he sends Senorita into the room and you just hear the sounds of them going at it. And the guards are just watching the clock, and then night falls and then day comes up again and they're still going at it, and then they're knocking out the door to come and get him for execution, and Senorita opens and she's got her hair is askew and her flower is somewhere else, and she's like, "You're too late. He's dead."
Jesus Christ.
He wanted death by sex. That was clever and a good way to go.
That was clever. It's a good way. That's the way to go right there if you're gonna go out.
Yeah, way better than the firing squad.
Just a little bit.
It's like, do you want the bullets or do you want to shoot your load?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we've done pretty well for
I think we have to.
This episode. I feel like we've been doing this long enough, despite the occasional break. I feel like we've been doing this long enough that we're kind of choosing better things for the other person that they aren't particularly going to hate.
Yes, I do think we're doing better at giving each other movies that we don't despise.
I think also because we're kind of, the more we do this, the more we kind of understand the other person's taste level, or as Ben has implied, my lack thereof.
It took me a while to get into your different tastes, but I finally have come around and accepted it.
Yay! Yeah, I've noticed you prefer a lot more of the serious stuff, whereas I'm over here and I'm like, no, thank you. Not
Oh, I almost
funny.
chose Brink for you, the Disney Channel original movie. That's a great coming of age story.
I don't think I've heard of that.
Oh, it'd be pretty tough to find, but it would have been a good one.
No, not ringing any bells, but I'm all for it. And again, I cannot believe it's been a year.
It is pretty insane that it's been a year, and it's been a fun year. It really has been.
Not
With
counting
this
COVID.
podcast.
We gotta be specific
Yeah, I got to
here.
be specific in 2020 so we don't get canceled on our year anniversary.
Yeah, and so much has changed. Both of us have grown so much since we started this, which is bizarre. And technically, that also means it's been just a little over a year since you went into the Movie Oracle Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it really has been, and I'm happy to be there.
That means it's also taken a year for us to get a new official person who's won that many games in
Hey,
there.
I know you're close though. I know you're close to it, and I'm excited to hopefully get a match soon. That'd be fun.
I'm hoping it's coming. Now we've got, well, yeah, I don't care. I'm sorry. I'm gonna lose. I'm not gonna rig it. I just know I am going to lose
Rig
this.
it, rig it, rig it.
Oh no, trust me. There is an episode I meant to be recording. I'm so tempted to rig that one, but I won't because I'm nice.
Oh, that's good.
I just like to sometimes get really shady questions.
I
Actually,
know.
there was
That are
in.
in TV and not movies. Or are true or false when you can steal answers.
I don't do that anymore. Kind
That
of.
was that was ridiculous.
I do that for bonus questions now, but I don't do that too often anymore because it seems a little unfair. Slightly.
Slightly.
No, but in the last episode, I asked about a tagline for a movie, which ended up being The Sandlot, and the guys were trying to guess, and they're just like, Beethoven? No, they're like Beethoven's first. No, Beethoven's second. And Craig, so that was John, and then Craig's going, yeah, that was going to be my guess. So it's like, oh, unless you were going to,
What was the tagline?
um, the friendship of a lifetime, the summer of their dreams, the dog of their nightmares, something like that.
Okay.
And yeah, and then Craig's going, yeah, no, okay, I'm gonna guess this. And I'm just like, no, it's none of those. And they're like, oh yeah, it would be really funny if it was Beethoven's third. And I'm like, I totally could be the kind of shady bitch who would have that as the answer and then not give it to you. And like, but no.
But
I'm
no.
like, I would have given half a point at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here
Oh,
we
well.
are, and we will. Okay, it's got nothing to do with me, so I'm going to say Ben will attempt to get us an episode for next month, assuming I'm even alive.
Assuming. I mean, same with me. We'll see it. We'll see if either of us are alive by the end of this month.
Yeah, somebody come and check in with me after, on Wednesday. Did I survive general anesthetic? Because, shit can go wrong.
Shit can go wrong, and I've been there before. So everyone check in on Ashleigh, leave a comment, make sure she's okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, if you're new to this, please know there are so many links that are attached to this video.
There's so many.
Ben now has like 100 different links between Patreon, Twitch, Streamlabs, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Am I forgetting anything?
No, that's it. You got it.
Yeah, he's got all of those because he's an overachiever.
Just a few of those. I try.
So you can check out all the links to those will be down below, and then you've got all the links to my stuff, including links to our podcast, which is not just on YouTube, it is also on SoundCloud and iTunes, and is now officially on Spotify. Yay!
Woo! More money.
Can I make money?
On Spotify? Absolutely.
How do I do that?
It should have already been done.
What?
What?
mentioned that when I signed up. I'm gonna go and read the fine print. Like,
please do.
not right now, because it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm cold, and I'm tired because I've been up all night.
Okay, you go to sleep then.
Thank you for permission. Thank you. I appreciate
You're welcome.
that.
Anytime. That's what I'm here for.
So thank you to everybody who was either watching or listening to the latest podcast episode of Switch Movies. We have no idea what's going to happen next month, if anything. We haven't picked a theme yet. We don't really pick one until after we do these. So if you want to find out what the theme is and what movies are, then you can subscribe to this podcast or follow it or whatever the hell button you push on whatever device you're on, and then you will be able to tune in to the next episode, which is going to be full of so many shenanigans because I know exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be having I'm going to finally be drinking booze.
Yay! That's actually good news.
I'm celebrating this stent being gone, and I'm putting alcohol into my body, which I'm not much of a drinker, but when I can't drink, that's when I want to drink. So
absolutely, that's how it goes.
So it's celebrate good times, come on. But
celebrate.
Thanks, Legion. So thank you, and we will catch you in the next one. So see ya.
Bye.